So, welcome everyone to the Karthik festivities at Sri Sri Radha Damodar Mandir. We are just left with another 2 more days, tomorrow and day after, by which the Karthik will end. So, as the end of Karthik, in the beginning sometimes we don't realize what this is, but as the end comes, we feel, the additional devotional surcharge which was present will be missed very soon. So, at least the days that we have now, an opportunity to um, participate in these festivities, we should do with all intensity that we can. So, as we have been discussing throughout this days of Karthik, we have been discussing about how to establish our relationship with Krishna through the process of yoga. And as described by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami as what is the means to acquire or to establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And primarily we have been focusing on these verses which this verse which talks about 5 important limbs of devotional service. The first of them being Sadhu Sangha, next Nama Kirtana, Bhagavata Shravana, Mathura Vas, and now the fifth one, Sri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevana. So it is very important to pay attention to the last one, Sri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevana. So one should worship the deity with Shraddha, with great faith and veneration. So this is the last anga, or the fifth limb of these 5 important limbs that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended for one to obtain love of Krishna. So next 2 days, today and tomorrow, we'll discuss, as we've been discussing for last 2 days, about Sri Murtire. So today I'll begin with the song that we sing every day in the morning, Guru Ashtakam. So we sing every day, Shri Vigra Aradhana Nityanana, Shringar Tan Mandira Marjanado, Yuktasya Bhaktamsha Niyunjatopi, Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. So Shri Vigra Aradhana. So we can see every day in the morning we are chanting this, we are singing this song, and here it is being mentioned that the spiritual master himself is engaged in worshipping the deity of Radha and Krishna. So this is one of the qualities of an acharya, that they are worshipped in the deities, deity worship of Sri Radha and Krishna. And if you look at all the Goswamis, Rupa Goswami worshipped Radha Govind, Sanatana Goswami worshipped Radha Madan Mohan, and in this way, if you look at different Goswamis, they have been worshipping the deities, and we can see Vrindavan, each of the Goswamis have a beautiful temple. Gopala Bhatta Goswami worshipping Radha Raman, and so on and so forth. So we can see that each of the Goswamis, they also established temples or worship the deity. One of the characteristics of the spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. And how is this worship is done? This worship is done in such a way that Nana means various, Shringara, clothing and ornaments. And so one way of worshipping the Lord is by decorating the Lord with beautiful ornaments and clothes. So the deity worship involves, Prabhupada says, the more one decorates the deity, the more we will be cleansed in our heart. And similarly, what is other aspect of worship? Mandira Marjanado. One other aspect is to cleanse the temple. Prabhupada says cleanliness is next to godliness. And in fact, when Prabhupada traveled to India in the beginning days, there was one person called Mishra. I think he met Prabhupada in Mumbai. So he says, Prabhupada, I traveled to many different countries. I went to Hawaii, I went to London, and I went to a few other places, and or maybe Malhotra, maybe his name is not Mishra, but Malhotra, I think. So he says that I visited many of your temples, and one of the qualities of your temple is that your temples are very, very clean. And I don't see those things in India. So you see, this aspect of cleaning the temple is a part of deity worship. Deity worship means to keep the temple also clean. And Ado means etc. So many other aspects like organizing festivals is also a part of deity worship. So especially the days of Janmashtami and other festivities, the appearance days and other important days of festivities like the Karthik month that we are celebrating, that is also important as part of deity worship. And Prabhupada wants and it is recommended that one must very gorgeously decorate, one must gorgeously celebrate the festival. Just like a king is celebrated, just a king is worshipped by his men. Similarly, the Lord must be worshipped very gorgeously. And the spiritual master is doing that and is also engaging yuktasya bhaktamsha niyunjatopi. At the same time, yuktasya, he is engaged, the spiritual master, and bhaktamsha niyunjatopi, and is also engaging the devotees, his disciples. So this is a characteristic of a pure devotee, a spiritual master. He is worshipping the deities and is also engaging his disciples in the service of the Lord. And then it is said, Chatur Vidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swadanna Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangan Kritvaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam. So Chatur Vidha Bhagavat Prasada Swadanna Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangan. So the spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. So another aspect of deity worship is to actually offer nice first class preparations to the deities. And the 4 kinds are said to, which are licked, chewed, drunk and sucked. So the spiritual master is always offering. And Srila Prabhupada has set very high standards for devotees to offer first class items to the deities. This is another important aspect of deity worship. And it is said, when the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Krishna Prasad or Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. So when is spiritual master satisfied? When he sees that his devotees, that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada. So this is non-different, because in Advaya Jnana means non-dual. That means the Lord, his name, his form, his remnants are non-different from him. And therefore, as soon as one associates with any of this, not name, fame, name, form, the activities, the remnants of the Lord, all these are spiritual. And therefore, when the devotees get an opportunity to honor prasadam and are satisfied, the spiritual master is very pleased. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada has established this wonderful system where all the temples, they distribute very generously prasadam. And as we know, Srila Prabhupada didn't want anyone within the radius of 10 kilometers of the temple to go hungry. And today, out of that, we have many food programs where devotees distribute a lot of prasadam. So these are all very important aspects of devotional service. Especially Srila Prabhupada has made wonderful system by which the deity worship is done with great standards, with great cleanliness, with great timeliness, offering first class items to the Lord, to keeping the temple clean, decorating the temple, the deities with beautiful dresses, ornaments. So this is a very important aspect. Now one may question, after all, we are a preaching mission. We are Nama Sankirtana is said to be the Yuga Dharma. So then one may question, why is that we need to pay so much attention we just chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra and be all good? Why do we need to do anything else? So this can be a general question that may come about in someone's mind. So this is explained by Srila Prabhupada in one of the purpose in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how to understand this. Because it is quite possible for one to neglect something, one of the angas, only one of them. But why is then it is recommended that this form of deity worship is an important anga of devotional service? So Jiva Goswami speaks extensively in Bhakti Sandarbha and other Sandarbhas about the different angas of devotional service and the importance of them. So he says that to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one does not need any paraphernalia. You see, whether Srila Prabhupada also says that whether you have instruments, whether you don't have instruments, whether you can sing very melodiously or not, but anything else, anyone can just sing. Batteries? Battery looks good. So one can note that to chant Hare Krishna, one does not need any external paraphernalia. Without a lot of difficulty, it can be very easily done. And also, simply by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one is directly associating with the Supreme Lord. And it is said that the relationship that we are trying to establish, the process of yoga, is actually complete by simply chanting the Lord's name. Then one may question, why is there a necessity for any other spiritual practice? Why is there a necessity for initiation? Why is there a necessity to become a Brahmana and to worship the deities in the temple? And why not just one engage in just chanting the holy name of the Lord? This can be a question for many people. But Srila Prabhupada wonderfully explains that it is, although it is correct that one who fully engages in chanting the holy name need not depend upon the process of initiation. So, in general, one important point Prabhupada is making here, we should pay attention, is that one who fully engages, to fully engage in chanting, a liberated soul is fully engaged in chanting. A sannyasi or an advanced Vaishnava is supposed to engage in intense Nama Bhajan. But if one is not fully engaging, okay, or so if one is fully engaging, one does not need to depend on any other process. But generally, a devotee is addicted to many abominable material habits due to material contamination from his previous life. So one is addicted to many abominable material habits. So there are various kinds of urges, vasanas, which are present within our body and mind system, which are not favorable for devotional service. So they disturb the individual to commit various kinds of things. Someone wants to gossip unnecessarily. Someone wants to unnecessarily interfere in someone is too greedy. Someone is too envious. See, these are all different material contaminations, abominable habits. And it's very difficult for people to give it up. To become angry unnecessarily, to speak harshly, various abominable material habits. And why are these existing? Because of material contamination from many, many previous lives. And therefore, the simple process of chanting is so difficult. And therefore, one cannot fully engage in chanting because of past material abominable habits. And so, how can one get this relief from all these material contaminations. If there's no relief from these material contaminations, the engagement in devotional life is poor, especially in the process of chanting. Although chanting by itself is all powerful, but our engagement in chanting is not enough or proper. Therefore, Prabhupada says that, in the mode of goodness and passion, it is very difficult to appreciate spiritual subject matter. One has to come to the platform of mode of goodness. Then the process of further revelation, the process of making advancement in spiritual life becomes very easy. So although this process is so simple because of our past habits, it is therefore required that one should be engaged in the worship of the Lord in the temple so that one can get quick relief from all these material contaminations. So this process is established. Actually, simply Kirtanam, Shravanam and Kirtanam is enough. But it is very difficult for the disturbed minds and bodies of this Kali Yuga to simply chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And therefore, Prabhupada writes, the worship of the deity in the temple is essential to reduce one's restlessness due to the contaminations of conditioned life. Everyone is restless, very restless. Immediately something has to be done, immediately something has to be touched. Our screens have to be touched, we have to engage with someone to talk. There's a certain restlessness in the body and mind, very restless. When one is restless, how can one chant and hear Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare? One cannot hear, one cannot chant attentively because the mind is rushing to do something else. So there is a huge amount of restlessness. It's a part of mode of passion. Very restless. The mind is running. And in this process of running, the mind is speculating instead of doing what is supposed to be done. So the restlessness can be curbed by engaging in deity worship. Because the deity worship is a very regulated process of worship. There is a great amount of regulation. And that regulation helps. There is intense activity, which is spiritual, which brings one to the mode of goodness, and coming to in direct service to the Lord, once that restlessness is curbed. And therefore it is recommended for all the neophyte, Kanishtadhikaris, like all of us, the beginner devotees, we must engage in devotional service in worshipping the Lord in the temple, so that our past material abominable habits are we get relief from all of those habits, and our restlessness reduces, and therefore it is stressed in Pancharatrika Vidhi, which is given by Narada Muni, that every conditioned soul must perform this deity worship in the temple. And more importantly, there is another important reason why deity worship is so important, is because there is a deep-rooted bodily concept of life that we all are in. And it's very difficult to give up that concept of bodily conception of I and mine. We're all driven by I and mine. What will I get? Where will I get? If not for me, how can I get something from my family members? So I and mine conception is very deep-rooted. And when there's a conception of I and mind, our activities are based for sense enjoyment. Our goals, our intent behind work is for sense enjoyment. So most people are working so hard. They do not know why they are struggling, why they are trying to get more money. At the end, there is sense enjoyment. Either oneself or extended self. So to curb this restless, the tendency of restlessness, this strong aim of enjoying the senses, deity worship is very important, because the rules and regulations of worshipping the deity, they restrict this sense enjoyment. And naturally the taste reduces for one who is engaged in deity worship. The process is so well designed that the bodily conception of life will come down, the eagerness for sense enjoyment will come down, and then one can make rapid progress in chanting and hearing Krishna Katha, in chanting the holy name and hearing the holy name. And therefore, it is described that although in fact Srila Rupa Goswami describes that holy name of the Lord can be chanted by liberated souls, but almost all the souls we have to initiate are conditioned. And therefore, it is advised that everyone simultaneously do this process of deity worship and chanting Hare Krishna. So therefore, these two paths are given to us. And Prabhupada writes that it is advised that one chant the holy name of the Lord without offenses, and according to the regulative principles, it is advised that if one chants without offenses, one can actually experience love of Godhead. One can actually elevate very quickly to experience higher stages of devotional service and devotional life. But for all others, because of our past habits, even the simple concept of chanting offenseless is not easy. And therefore, we break various rules and regulations, or we commit various offenses, and the tendency to do that repeatedly still exists. And therefore, to curb this, both deity worship and chanting, Shravanam and Kirtanam, is simultaneously recommended. So we must know, it is sometimes people think, oh, I'll just pay importance to chanting and I'll not be concerned about doing deity worship as equally important or something like that. But it is not. For us, deity worship is very important. Only by that we will curb these lower things and come to a stage where we can chant better. So this is very instructive, and there are many other instructions which Srila Prabhupada gives with regard to worshipping deity, and especially for householders. Prabhupada also recommends that the householders must worship the deity at home, because as we discussed, there is a tendency to eat, there is a tendency to enjoy senses. So Prabhupada says, if one engages worshipping the deities at home, then that tendency to go to cinemas, to clubs, to hotels, to visit some other places, all those will naturally come down. Otherwise, everyone is restless. Can we go to this place? Can we go to that place? Can we eat there? Can we travel all the way to eat somewhere else? So a lot of desires and tendencies. And it is very difficult in Kali Yuga. So unless one is not engaged in deity worship, it is not possible. And therefore, Prabhupada recommended that his disciples, in fact, Prabhupada says that all the grihasthas must learn to worship the deity worship at home, because that way one's mind is engaged. Just like if the householders are thinking, okay, how to decorate the deities very well, how to offer them very well. So the same thing which they are doing otherwise, now that is naturally when they go to buy something, they can think about the deities. Because naturally everyone is going for the household activities to buy something. But when there are deities, one immediately also think, okay, can I get something for the deities? Can I get some flowers? Can I get some food? Can I get some nice vegetables? So in this way, the process of doing even other activities becomes spiritualized. Otherwise, one is engaging in sense enjoyment. And there are many other important instructions about worshipping deities. One very important instruction that is while doing deity worship is that it is very important that chanting is a very important aspect while doing deity worship also. And if we look very carefully in ISKCON temples, and even across many other Vaishnava temples, but more specifically in ISKCON temples, you'll see Srila Prabhupada has established this, that whenever this deity worship is happening, it's also Kirtanam is happening. So in Kali Yuga, everything has to be supported on the basis of Nam Kirtan. So even while one is doing deity worship, the Kirtanam has to go on. Kirtanam, without Kirtanam, there is no deity worship. And also, it is very important for the worshipper that one should keep chanting all the time. A pujari or a devotee who is going to worship the deities must be in a good state of consciousness. To stay in good state of consciousness, when one chants the transcendental prayers, one chants the transcendental sound vibration, one's consciousness gets evolved. Otherwise, we can see our consciousness from the previous day will affect us next day morning. As soon as we wake up, something from the previous day is coming to our consciousness, or something that is going to happen today is coming to our consciousness. Then we are not in the state to worship the Lord. Although we may come to temple, although we are able to worship the deities at home or maybe elsewhere, but our minds are not there. Therefore, the purification of the mind also should happen by chanting. And especially for devotees who are worshipping the Lord either at home or in the temple, chanting mantras, prayers, or Hare Krishna Mahamantra is very important. Then one's state of consciousness is proper. Otherwise, while worshipping also, there are many offenses that one can commit while worshipping the deities in the temple. And we will, I think Balaram Prabhu will cover tomorrow some of the offenses that one might be committing while doing deity worship. But it is very important that one is having a good state of consciousness, and for that, chanting is very important. One other important thing that is very important is that Prabhupada says that one should not become too familiar with the spiritual master and the Lord. Familiarity brings, it kind of brings certain looseness in our behavior sometimes. So we have to be very careful when we are dealing with the spiritual master and the deities and deity worship. We must be very attentive because we are personally serving the Lord. One very important element of recognizing is that the Lord is personally present. He has expanded himself in this form of Archa Vigraha so that I can see him. And what is the purpose for which the Lord has expanded in this form? So that he can accept our service. So that we can engage in offering him something, and he always present everywhere. He can accept. But we are not in a state of consciousness, or we are not elevated enough to offer him in that way, and therefore he has personally appeared so that we can render service unto him, so that he can accept the foodstuffs that we are offering him. And therefore we have to be very personalized in doing deity worship. While worshipping the Lord, we should know the Lord is here. I cannot be inattentive, I cannot be disrespectful. And Prabhupada actually opens temple in Melbourne. They were just very new devotees, and he opens a temple and he installs deities, and he says, "Oh Lord, I've invited you here, and these are people from different culture, Mlechas, Yavanas, from different backgrounds. They are here. Please guide them. You are within their heart, so that they may worship you properly." And we should always seek the permission of the spiritual master and guidance. It is very important in deity worship, and in general, in any devotional activity, we should be under superior guidance, so that we do not commit offenses. Because we should know that Srila Prabhupada has invited their lordships. Srila Prabhupada is inviting the Lord to come in the form of deities, and therefore we must be very careful in how we worship them. So we must be very attentive to the instructions given by Srila Prabhupada, especially Srila Prabhupada was very particular about cleanliness, timeliness, the standards of offerings, the standards of dressing, and so on and so forth. Srila Prabhupada wanted first class standards, and we really appreciated devotees, especially LA Temple, ISKCON LA. They had very high standards, and Prabhupada was very pleased with the devotees. And wherever he saw the deity worship was going on very well, he was very, very pleased. And this is a very special process of cleansing our heart. Just simply on behalf of our spiritual master, if we do nice deity worship, and the simplest way a grihastha can do is to have Gaur-Nitai deities. But in this case, Prabhupada also gives sometimes instructions that if the temple is very close, one should not spend too much time doing deity worship at home. If they can come to temple and participate, it's even more nicer. Because the standards of temple worship in a home is slightly lower than what it is to be done in the temple. So if it is temple is so close by, one should definitely engage more in temple activities, and there can be a simple program at the house. And in this way, everyone must engage in some form of worship at home also, but based on the nearness to the temple, one should have some practicalities and more life in such a way that even every householder, Prabhupada says that I do not want just temples to be our centers. Rather, for those who cannot follow high regulative principles or cannot agree to live in the temple premises, or the householders who need to live outside, they can all worship the Lord, invite family and friends, and distribute prasada, do kirtana, celebrate Lord's festivals, or invite other devotees to come and participate. So all these things can, for the pleasure of the Lord, if one does, it is such a great blessing. And actually this process of Archana Paddhati, or worshipping the deities, is a very purifying process for our restless mind, for our eagerness, to curb the eagerness for sense enjoyment, and to help us come out of the bodily concept of life, and bring us closer to the mode of goodness and higher very easily, and by which our chanting and other devotional practices becomes very enhanced. So it is a very wonderful process. We should all pray and try to engage in the worship of the Lord in his Archa form and seek his blessings under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada, and that is very pleasing. And Prabhupada wants even the children to be learning this worship, and Prabhupada was worshipping the deities from his very young age, and he used to visit temple every day. So even children must be trained in this form of worshipping the Lord, and that is very nice. We'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai ki, Shri Shri Radha.